Okay, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for tonight's meeting and presentation with the Los Alamos Mountaineers. Before we get started, I want to make sure everyone's aware that the presentation is being recorded. And I am Beth Courtwright. I'm the operations manager at PEAK, or the Pajarito Environmental Education Center in Los Alamos, New Mexico. And I'll be the moderator for tonight's talk. First thing, I want to acknowledge all of our wonderful members and our donors, our partners like the Mountaineers, for all of their generous support. For details about other PEAK programs, you can visit our website at the bottom there. It is peaknature.org. And just a couple logistics. I apologize for those of you that have heard this many, many times. But before we get started, let me just let you know our presenter will be taking questions via the Zoom chat and from our in-person audience. So for those of you watching from home, you can find the chat feature in the Zoom menu bar, and you can type your questions there to the one that says Peak Moderator, and anytime during the talk, and I'll read them at the Q&A at the end. Please remember that not everyone in the room here can have a microphone with us, so there's usually a delay when we're listening to questions from the live audience. Don't worry, we'll be back on in a second, and our presenter will repeat the question so everyone can hear. After the talk, you'll get a short evaluation in your email. Please do take a moment to fill that out. Your input really helps us improve future programs. We do read those. We do, I promise. And I'll pass it over to Jan to start the Mountaineers meeting.
Okay, thank you, Beth. Good afternoon, good evening. Thank you, everyone, for coming to our monthly meeting. Tonight we have a bunch of agenda. We will have a safety tip from Jean. Then we will have update on climbing school, trip reports, and then we will hear about a beautiful hike in Mexico. So please, Jean, Sylvie. Okay, let's start with the. Oh, sorry, Jean.
It's okay. All right. Let's see. We advance. It's a really good year for ticks in the Jemez Mountains. That is, there's a lot of them. We had a mild winter this past winter. They didn't get killed off, and we have lots of deer around, and they're often hosted by the local deer. You find them in grasses, shrubs, and bushes along your hiking paths in the Jemez. And they can carry disease. In this part of the world, it's Rocky Mountain spotted fever. Back east, it can be Lyme disease. I haven't heard any reports yet of any verified Rocky Mountain spotted fever, though, at this point. So they're not good guys. You can use insect repellent to repel them. And probably more effective is to spray your clothing with a chemical called permethrin. It's available at REI, and you can buy it through Amazon and probably other dealers. And it's actually a pesticide, and you spray it on your clothes, and it takes about 2 hours to dry. And then it's good for about 6 washes cycles, so it'll last a while. And I'm happy to say that I've been on many hikes this spring in the Jemez, and I've not gotten a tick once, and I think it's because of the permethrin. So you should check your clothing, your arms and your legs during and after your hike, especially if you take a shower after your hike, do a full body check. The recommended action, if you find a tick that has burrowed its head into your skin, is to use a pair of tweezers and pull it straight out. If you're out in the field and you don't have a pair of tweezers, you can use your fingernails to do it. And then when you can, wash the wound out thoroughly and monitor it, because it may be infected. So you might have to seek some medical treatment for an infection. The old wives' tale about taking a match, lighting a match and putting it on the tick and it'll pull itself out. Now what they think is that's more likely for the tick to throw the rest of its poison into your body. So they don't recommend that anymore. Just pull it out with a tweezer or your hands. All right.
Okay, thank you. Now we have Sylvie. I can pull it for you. Oh, I'm sorry, we have Gwendolyn. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Did I just shock you? Sorry. It was static. You heard the shock? Did you? You didn't feel it?
I didn't feel it.
I felt it. It was you. It was your electric personality. Hi, I'm Gwendolyn. I'm filling in for Tony Taylor tonight. Tony organized the 2025 climbing school, which was a big success. And 12 students completed the 4-day course. And I attended a couple of the sessions, and we just had a great time. It was a wonderful group of 12 students. There were 3 scholarship recipients for this year, and I just want to remind those of you in the room and on the line that if you're a recent graduate, we are hosting a climbing outing at Las Conchas Sunday, June 1st at 9 a.m. And there will be, I think 4 of us kind of old time mountaineers who can help set routes and help with belaying and stuff. So if you're a new graduate and you want to continue, refreshing your skills and learning your skills, please come join us on Sunday and we'll have a really fun outing. So thanks.
Thanks, Gwendolyn. All right. One more topic before the main presentation. I'm Sylvie Adam, this year's trip coordinator. Reviewing the May trips we offered. So Bill took some people with the llamas in the Escalante country. And it looked as beautiful as ever, Bill. So another successful trip. Very nice. Hopefully more llama trips. I don't have a picture, and it organized an early morning sunrise hike out of which trailhead? Mitchell, that's right. The goal was to hike while speaking Spanish. And so I don't have a photo, but I think she'll offer it again. So look for it in your email and on the calendar. Let's see, mid-May, Jean with Peak organized the introduction to backpacking, where people can learn to backpack by primarily using Peak's gear. So you can borrow the gear for free. Jean will take you someplace cool and try all the gear before you go spend a fortune at REI, the way they do. So I was on that trip. We had a father and son, and then Eric. So 3 people pretty new to Los Alamos who discovered a whole new area. We went to Water Canyon, and because there were so many caterpillars, I decided to learn a little bit more about it. And so this Western tent caterpillar, I think we're in a high year, last couple of years, so that should last another year. Then we might get a break. I think they're on a 6 to 11 year cycle. But I was floored to learn that with the amount of biomass they eat, we see all the damage, right? All the damage on the aspen, that when they go from the caterpillar to the pupa to the adult only lives 6 days. So all that for 6 days. But I'm learning to live with them. There's no other choice. Let's see, yesterday on Memorial Day, Bill took 12 people to Skull Bridge along the Chama River and walked west on the CDT trail. And dramatic sky yesterday. I love that photo. And then I was surprised. I didn't know the fire was right on the trail, Bill. So to see that burn there from last year's fire is amazing. I hadn't realized that. All right, done with the completed trip, on to future trip. So there's still the Tuesday and Thursday top roping with Rachel. She moves around, so look on our calendar to see where she will have her session. And then Ellen Mills is going to start the Parito Ski Hill hike in the evening. It used to be on Monday night, but because the ski hill is closed Monday through Thursday for the construction, the first one will be this Saturday. And then, where's Rick? Am I right, Rick? It might move around between Friday and Saturday. Yeah, okay. So again, she'll post it on our calendar. You can look there weekly to see which day she'll hold this hike. You bring it's a little potluck. So at the top of the hill, the group gathers and shares a few dishes, and I hear it's just fun. Oh, Bill, come talk to us about this trip. You'll do a better job than me. Thank you.
So that llama trip in May was our last llama trip with Pat Kerr, BJ Orozco out of Boulder, Utah, who has taken us to wonderful places for a good part of 20 years. Whether that business continues or not is to be determined. But this fall we want to do something different. So we found a very nice house in Hanksville, Utah. And if you've driven through Hanksville, it's not the most exciting looking place, but the places that it has access to are just a very wide range of destinations for day hikes that we haven't covered very well because you always just drive through Hanksville and keep going. These are some of the possibilities out of that trip, and I would just invite people to join us. We'll have a very comfortable house. You will socialize, eat in the evenings, and out in the day we'll explore one direction after another through all sorts of narrow canyons and pictographs and the San Rafael Swell. I'm pretty excited about it. It's all new.
Thanks, Bill. All right, I'll finish my things. Bill already had planned his November trip in Moab, also an annual trip of biking, hiking, exploring. I think that's full. Still. Oh, there's room left for the November trip. We're getting close from Tanya's first trip of the year, backpacking Wolf Creek Pass to Cumbria. She's not here, so I don't know if it's full. But if anyone is interested in joining, look at the announcement on our website and contact Tanya. So she's got a July Wolf Creek Pass to Cumbria Pass. She's got an August and a September. So check our calendar. And then my monthly reminder, if you're not a member, please join us, $15 or $20 at 24 family. And let's put some trips on the June calendar. May was busy, but June is a little lighter, so let's get out there together. And that is it for trip. Here is Jan to introduce our presenter.
Thank you, Sylvie. Thank you, Bill. Yes, so tonight we have the pleasure to have Paul Bradley here. He has been hiking in New Mexico and Colorado for maybe 30 years, and what I've heard, he hiked most of the peaks around here. A huge amount of hiking, but eventually he realized that the 14,440 feet is not enough for him. So he went seeking some higher mountains, and he ended up hiking some of the big volcanoes in Mexico. So that's what he's going to speak about tonight. Okay, Paul, sorry.
Okay, am I on? All right, so thank you. Yes, have been climbing, hiking in New Mexico and Colorado. I moved here in late summer of '93 to take a job at the lab, and then 31 years later retired, although like many people decided to fail retirement, still go in on a regular basis, but nowhere near as much as before. So here I'm going to talk about a trip that I took this past January to Mexico for some mountain climbing. So why am I doing this? Well, I've done, as you can see there, 199 of the highest 200 peaks in Colorado. Peak 15 is my nemesis. And if you've climbed in Colorado, you'll understand why. But the problem is the highest peak you can do in the lower 48 is about 14.5. And I've been having this itch that I wanted to scratch of doing something higher than that. So I started to look at options. And wound up settling on Mexico. Has several peaks higher than the Rockies. Relatively easy to get to, not technical, and can do them quickly. You don't have a multi-day expedition. The best climbing season is winter with less storms. It doesn't interfere with climbing season here. And then I could join a guided tour to simplify the logistics of these peaks. And for those of you wondering, okay, the projector just suicided again. The top is Iztaccihuatl, and the bottom here is Popocatépetl, two of the high volcanoes. You can see that Popocatépetl is unclimbable because it is erupting and has been since the mid-90s. So once I saw this guided tour option, I was like, okay, I'm in. I used Rainier Mountaineering. They have a trip called Orizaba and Iztaccihuatl. They do have physical fitness and mountaineering experience requirements, so you can't just sign up and go. And the price was fairly reasonable, and they had an extensive gear list, which, because I didn't have stuff rated for 0 Fahrenheit, had to go get a bunch. Here's the itinerary in case you're wondering. It's 9 days, fly to Mexico City. We drive to the cabins for La Malinche, which is the first peak. After we do that, we drive to climb Iztaccihuatl from the trailhead. I'll go in more detail later. I'm summarizing here. And then after climbing Iztaccihuatl, there's a rest day in Puebla, so you can recuperate. And then you drive to Tlachuca, which is the last town before you go to the Orizaba trailhead, climb that peak, spend the night, and then drive the 3+ hours to Mexico City and fly home. Here's the high mountains of Mexico. I've highlighted the ones that I climbed. The lowest one is La Malinche, also known as Malinche, 14.6, so that's already higher than the Rockies. There's Iztaccihuatl, which is 17.2. And then, although we didn't climb it, we got great views of Popocatépetl. And finally, there's Orizaba, also known as Iztaccihuatl, at 18.5, third highest peak in North America. All of these are big volcanoes in Mexico. And note that Mexico only has 8 14ers, even fewer than California. Most of them are located pretty close to Mexico City. Nevada Toluca is the one that's to the west. Here's Iztaccihuatl and Popocatépetl, a little bit to the southeast of Mexico City. Here's Puebla for the rest day. La Malinche is close to Puebla. And finally, Orizaba is here next to Tlachuca. And Cofre de Perote is over here which we could see. A little bit about why, and I'll skip over to this one. So there's the North America plate that Mexico sits on, and there's a couple of small plates sliding underneath, the Rivera plate and the Cocos plate. The Cocos plate sliding underneath is what's causing the volcanic activity in the eastern part of this trans-Mexican belt that we were climbing on. And this shows some of the major peaks as part of that belt. Colima is all the way over here in the west, but the rest of them you can see are pretty close to Mexico City. This is Perote, here is Malinche and Orizaba. So getting there, wound up flying to LAX, and then from LAX hop on a plane and go to Mexico City. I managed to get a seat next to the window, so got cheap entertainment, seeing some open pit mines. This is a gold mine. There was actually a second one about 2 minutes later on the flight. You know, and you can see it's desert. Then we got to see Cañón del Cobre above the engine. That's Mexico's answer to the Grand Canyon, about 6,000 feet deep. It's quite spectacular. And then finally, Mexico City. Yeah, the smog tells you you're coming to Mexico City. 22.5 million people in that metro area, one of the big cities on Earth. You know, and unfortunately, this is washed out, but take my word for it that from the airport, I saw the clouds, and I wait a moment, that's not a cloud, that's Iztaccihuatl, 40 miles away, and Mexico City is the same elevation as here, about 7,200 feet. The company had us staying in the Hotel Geneve in the Zona Rosa, a nice old hotel, and we had a few hours in, which I'll get to in a moment. So here's our group. There's main guide Joe, me, the apprentice guide Lacey. There's Tristan from Vancouver, Faith from Miami, Florida, Matt from New York, Tyler from Des Moines, Iowa, and then Johnny from Seattle. There was one other person who did not show up. So we had 6 of us and 2 guides. There was a local guide that was with us on Iztaccihuatl and Orizaba. You'll also notice all of these people are flatlanders except for me. So even though I was probably 15 or 20 years older than the rest of them, I did have the fact that I was acclimatized to 7,000 feet. Mandatory tacos the first night at a restaurant nearby. Then the next morning we had some time, and it turns out the Paseo de la Reforma, which is this massive street, if you've never been to Mexico City, it's like 5 lanes wide on each side. They close it to vehicles on Sunday mornings, which this was, and families are out, joggers are out, bicyclists are out, and we walked along saw the Angel of Independence, Fountain, Diana the Huntress, and then Chapultepec Park, which point we turned around and went back and caught the bus. On the way, you know, seeing the hills and stuff, we stopped at a truck stop, not entirely by choice. Our first bus pooped out on us at that point, and so we wound up having a super leisurely lunch of about 3 hours waiting for the next bus to show up. The guide said, you know, if we had to have something like this happen, this was the day to have it. We rolled into Puebla and then La Malinche, Malinche Park. There's La Malinche in the clouds. You know, we set up, there's lots of cabins and, you know, with bunk beds and showers and stuff. No heat, though. That was one minor downside, although it wasn't that cold. Then we had dinner at the main restaurant building, and it was what the guides call meat tower fajitas with cactus pads and really large bowls of guacamole, which I was very happy about. There's the summit of La Malinche above the park. And then we had a hike in the afternoon after we got there, and then our group started up the trail, and a couple of the local dogs adopted us because we'd pet them, and some of the people would give them snacks, and of course then they loved us forever. The trail was well marked with signs telling us how high we were and how far back to the camp. And then finally, at about 12,500 feet, we broke out of timberline and could see the main summit of La Malinche, and we were going to head up here to the saddle and then go up the ridge. And we took a rest break with pictures. When we got to the saddle, we got our first good views of Orizaba and Popo and Ixta, which I'll call them. Here's our group up on the ridge. It was cool enough, you know, we needed jackets and stuff. And yes, to answer your question, there was some ice and stuff. The wind sculpted some of it into these weird shapes, which I'd never seen before, and called people's attention to it. You can see these blasted areas. That's ice sculptures. Kind of cool. And then eventually we scrambled up to the summit, noticed that 4-paw power works quite well. They were wondering what took us so long. And then, you know, we got the big selfie. My long arms work very well for that. And then going down, you notice there's some ice in some of the shaded areas. So these people were pretty good about the safety aspects of things, and were, you know, telling me where to stop on roping and giving me some directions. And, you know, more people heading down. And then, you know, finally we got down off of the ridge and packed up the harnesses and ropes and gear and stuff, petted the pooches a bit, and then spent the night there with dinner. And then the next morning we drove over to the trailhead for Iztaccihuatl. This is the Nahuatl word for white or salt woman, to reference to it looking like a sleeping lady. This is the peak from Ameca, the nearest significant town to Iztaccihuatl. We drove up to the Paseo de Cortez, to the park headquarters, paid the fee, gawked at Ixta and Popo from there, and then drove to La Jolla, which is the trailhead at over 13,000 feet. Put on our packs for overnight stuff. Fortunately, all we had to do was carry our personal gear. We had porters that carried the tents and all the cooking stuff, so we didn't have to haul that mess up to the high camp at 14.6, where we arrived at sunset for dinner and then got up at 1 a.m. for about a 2:30 in the morning start. And the reason for the really early start on Ixta and Orizaba is that clouds frequently form and drape over the mountains in the afternoon, rendering the visibility to near zero, and so you don't want to deal with that. Plus, the snow can get soft in the afternoon, which makes the footing really lousy. We summited at about 7:30. This picture I swiped off the internet, but it shows Iztaccihuatl. So there's Las Pieds, the feet, Las Rodillas, the knees, La Barriga, the belly, El Pecho, the breast, which is the summit, El Cuello, the neck, and La Cabeza, the head. This is the Ayaloco Glacier, which is the route we went up. We came across, camped about here, and then across up to the ridge, and then bounced over the knobs to the summit. Here's a view of Ixta from the park headquarters. Campsite is roughly there. There's some TV towers nearby to over 13,000 feet. And this is the trailhead area. They set out tarps for us to sort our gear on so we wouldn't take up a bunch of the black dirt with our packs. And there's Popo puffing away, and I'll talk more about that peak later. So once we got our gear together, we were off and hiking through the grass. We're going to head through this meadow and then climb up here and go underneath this wall up to the shelf up here where our camp was going to be for the night. These things were in abundance. I don't know what they were, but they were an evil cross between a yucca and a cactus, thorny little devils, and you did not want to, get too friendly with them. And then, our group hiking up through the grass. Here, that's the TV towers. La Jolla is here, and we've come down through this up to where we are. And then here's our camp at 14.6, and sun is setting, Popo is puffing, and the dinner is almost ready. They had 2 tents, 3 people to a tent, very cozy. And here's the view ahead of us. Some memorial crosses, and that's the trail continuing up across this thing. And you notice there's not a lot of snow, even at 14.6 this particular time, but it's already below freezing. Johnny, has got his gear on. And here's Mexico City, very visible from Ixta. If you can see the peak, it can see you. The stars, and I should mention here, all the pictures were done with my cell phone camera, and I got a new iPhone 16, and it does really well. They're impressive. It's another shot. Here we are eating dinner. They had boiled water, and they gave us, choices of different ramens and other carbohydrate energy foods for dinner, and the guides are getting the ropes out to help secure us when we go up on the glacier. This is the next morning. We're on the Ayaloco Glacier, and that's Mars with Castor and Pollux for those of you that know astronomy. I'm up on the ridge of Ixta. This is sunrise. There's La Malinche and Orizaba in the distance. And then this is the Arista del Sol route here that a lot of people take. We didn't. And there's Popo. Here we are up on the ridge, my guide, and I kind of exhilarating to be 2,000 feet higher than I'd already than I'd ever been. It was exhilarating. I did not get to the very top of Ixta, not because of ability, but because I was moving a bit slow. That seemed to be my one concession to age is I wasn't moving as fast as some of the people. But the guide remarked that I was moving at a very steady pace. I didn't have to stop. I just kept chugging along. And this is the mandatory flag at the high point I got to. And, celebratory picture. Here's the route ahead. So this is the first sub-summit, and that's the actual summit. And you can kind of see you go along that and then over there. If I'd had more time, I would have done it. I did get pictures from some of the other people of the rest of the route. These two little things, that's Lacey and I, that the other people took the picture of. And I figure I got to this Peña Ordóñez, which was a little over 17,000 feet. And here you can see the Refugio Yoloco and going up this thing. That's where I would have been, and the other two summits. And here's some of the other people actually making it to the top. Iztaccihuatl is a dormant volcano. This is one of the calderas right here, that snow-filled bowl. Ixta supposedly has 4, although they're not obvious. And Lacey and I got back down to the saddle. These two people to the left climbing up to the top, and these 4 people in the middle are the 3 younger guys that could be called the 3 Musketeers, with their local guide helping them back down. This is what the Ayaloco Glacier looks like. Not a lot of snow. There's steady snow, but there's a lot of rocks visible. And here's another picture of the remains of it as we're getting closer to where we take off the crampons. And then we get back down to camp. There's Nevada Toluca in the distance at over 15,000 feet. Plenty of lizards sunning themselves on the rock. And we quickly broke camp, got our gear together, and hiked back down. You can see part of the trail to La Jolla here. And then, we're back in La Jolla, get our gear together. The stuff we did not take with us was in the bus, and then was locked up with somebody guarding it, so we didn't have to worry about the security of our other gear. And we drove back over to Puebla. I'll detour for a second to talk about Popocatépetl, which the Nahuatl word is smoking mountain. Kind of appropriate. It's been erupting since the mid-90s. It's absolutely fascinating to watch this thing puffing away. The white is steam, and then there would be gray that would be the ash coming up out of it. And it differed constantly as to how much of what. Here's a couple of shots from the bus, Popo puffing away. This shot is from the visitor center. It's just dramatic. It's just a constant source of entertainment. Here it's only doing some steam. As we were driving to Puebla, we slept a good chunk of the way there because we'd been up from 2 a.m., before 2 a.m. till, 2 p.m. hiking and stuff. And, the bus driver got to hear us snoring, but we stopped at one of the truck stops, and most of them had these little chapels with the Madonna, and there's typically dogs. This one even had a T-shirt. Restrooms, which cost 5 pesos, which was about 25 cents to use. And the rest stop had a nice view of Ixta and Popo from the distance. So Puebla is at 7,000 feet. it's wound up being a good place to stop. It's where the Cinco de Mayo battle happened in 1862. We spent the day after Ixta, which was a Thursday, sightseeing, shopping, and resting. And we had our celebratory dinner for the group that night because we weren't going to be together as a group in this kind of setting after that point. This picture is the pedestrian street in front of our hotel. And that night we got in, Joe, our main guide, had been here before, so he knew how to go through the little back stairways and stuff and get on the roof for this view in the twilight of Popo here on the left and Ixta on the right, and the main cathedral of the city. Really nice view. And then the next morning, this is our hotel, the front of it. I believe I was in this room. It's a nice old hotel built in the 1800s. It was originally called the Garden Hotel. And this is our room, in case you're curious as to what a typical room would look like. High ceilings, could use a paint job. Nice beds. And, it's actually quite nice. They had lots of plants and this, very airy atrium for the garden atmosphere. And right outside the hotel was a church. And then on the Zocalo, the main square, there was a building with a shopping arcade and, plenty of shops. My roommate had lactose intolerance, so we had to find a place that didn't have queso, which was not as easy as it might sound. But we went into this one taco store, Don Pastor, and, Mexican wrestling theme stuff in there, which was kind of fascinating. And then the Zocalo, here's, like Los Angeles, this has City of the Angels built into its longer name, and, statues showing the Spanish heritage, fountains and sculptures on the Zocalo. And you can see, World Patrimony City. This is next to the main cathedral. Interesting architecture, yes, those are cannons as part of the architecture. This building is now part of the University of Puebla. And actually, we went inside, and there was a nice courtyard, and part of the library was in this building. And then here's the main cathedral with the massive organ and other stuff. And then our dinner was in this one restaurant. Their claim to fame was gold foil hamburgers. And then we drove on over to Orizaba, also known as Iztaccihuatl, or Star Mountain in the Nahuatl language. 18 and a half. It's the highest point in Mexico, third highest point in North America. It's a popular climb. It's not technically difficult, and it can be done as an overnight trip. However, it's a big mountain, it's cold, and you have to climb a glacier starting at 16.1 that's at a steady 30 to 35 degree angle, so it's no joke. It's a dormant volcano with the last eruption in 1687. And that's a satellite view, and you can actually see the small caldera from space. As we were driving to Tlachuchuca, we were going along the fields, which are at 7,000 feet, and we see this, and it's like, oh, that's a big mountain, because it's 11,500 above us. we get to Tlachuchuca to a hostel where we are going to store our gear the first night and spend the night the second night. It was a former soap factory, and there's a steam engine, there's a boiler here, steam engine with the motor and all, in what's now the common room. And then there's a second room where we're sorting out and storing our gear. The owner of the place, Gerardo Reyes Carlin, his great-grandfather started the thing, and he showed us gave us a tour of the place and described it, showed us the Carnegie steel on the frame of the boiler and all of that from the late 1800s. And then we loaded our gear in one of these four-wheel drive pickups, and the warm bodies in the other four-wheel drive pickup, this one where Matt's standing next to, and go up to the trailhead at 14,000 feet. And this, my friends, is why we do not climb Orizaba in the middle of the day. Notice how foggy it is. This is the big climber's hut. Not for us. Plenty of volcanic rocks. This is the small hut. That was where the community gear and the cooking was done. The tents are for us. This time it was two people to the tent. And see, you can see how foggy it is. There's plenty of memorial crosses nearby where we were. Orizaba has claimed its share of lives. So we wound up getting there about 3 p.m. We had dinner at 5 and were in bed by 6:30 because we were going to get up at 12:45 in the morning. But between when we got there and dinner, we took a hike, noticed that there's actually a sidewalk, believe it or not, starting out the trail. But as near as I could figure, it actually was an aqueduct because there were places in the middle where there were holes where you could see a water channel underneath. So we did this to acclimatize, and there's this parking area in the big hut. Keep your eye on that because in a few minutes you'll see something different. Again, I stole this picture off the internet because this will orient you on the climb. There's the big climber's hut at 14,000 feet. The sidewalk goes up here, stops about here, and then you go through what they call the labyrinth. And you work your way up to here, the Hamapa Glacier. At 16.1 up to the Caldera Rim at about 18.2. And then you go about a third of the way around the caldera to the summit. So 12:45 we get up. This is about 1:30 in the morning, us getting our stuff together, getting our hot oatmeal and other food and everything. That's a Little Dipper. Notice how low it is. We're at 20 north. So got to see the Southern Cross and some of those southern constellations from here, which for me was a treat. And then about 1:30, 1:40, we started up. It's a popular climb. By the time we started up, we saw one group of about 40 people and two groups of about 20 people each heading up. I figure there was probably around 100 people climbing the mountain that morning. Here's a picture of us after we put on our crampons and gaiters and stuff, taking a rest break. It was cold, but not real cold on the mountain. Ixta, I figure the temperature was in the upper teens. It actually wasn't that bad. Orizaba, I figure, was probably about 10 above zero. So cold, but not obnoxiously so. And this picture, you can see all the headlights of people going up the mountain. Quite the crowd. This is one that a friend of mine took that was low resolution, so sorry about that. And then at dawn, we retreated to the side of the shadow stretching out for miles and miles across the plains. That's La Malinche, probably about 30 miles away. And then, groups of people roped together, working their way up. It turned out because there was a path worn into the glacier and everything that most people were using trekking poles instead of ice axes. That being said, the glacier was, and here's a couple of people from my group. And notice all the dots, that's people. But ever so often I saw something skittering down the glacier. I saw a couple of trekking poles go down. I think there was an ice axe. And I'm like, was that a climbing helmet I just saw going down the glacier? Oh, but they don't need that. And I told my guide that I was roped to, Lacey, I'm not planning on taking a break to get my water or snacks out because I don't want the things going down the glacier. We're going to muscle it up until we can get to where it flattens out, and then we'll stop. She was fine with that, and that's what we wound up doing. And then the summit. We actually topped out about over here at about 18.2, and that's where we stopped. And it's also where I smelled sulfur. Not completely dormant. And, but, we stopped for a bit, walked around, and, it was a marvelous feeling. This is Cofre de Perote, the 14,000-foot volcano. Respectable caldera. Don't get too close. There's Popo and Ixta, and La Malinche is over here. Notice now the smoke is going right over Ixta. Okay, that would have been a good day to climb that one. This is Sierra Negra with the radio telescope. Any of you remember HAWC? HAWC. This is an air shower Cherenkov telescope that the lab is actually involved in. So, kind of neat. Here's our group photo. Fortunately, with all the people up there, we could just have somebody take our picture, and then we took their picture, so, everything was good. We were also the highest people in North America at this point. So it's the third highest summit, and no one in their right mind would be summiting Denali or Mount Logan in January. And here's some views, the Hamapa Glacier, and you can see here the well-worn path. It was not that bad. Sure, there were crevasses in the glacier, but we didn't see any sign of that. And then here's a view looking up, and you can see the reflection off the ice and stuff. We had on goggles to prevent snow blindness. Ice waterfall, little penitentes formed by sun and evaporation at high altitude. These were only about, I'd say, 6 inches high. Up on Aconcagua, the penitentes are like 6 feet high. Now we're almost back to the vehicles. Notice the parking lot's got lots more vehicles. The weekend warrior's going to summit on Sunday. And here we are bouncing back. There's Orizaba peeking out through the clouds in the late afternoon. And then the next morning after we had dinner and crashed for the night, we were getting ready to load up and head back to Mexico City. there's Orizaba poking up above the compound. And driving back, there's these lots of cornfields we saw all around, and a lot of them had corn still standing, and then there are others where the corn had been harvested, and then the spent corn was in piles, I guess, to be burned later on before planting. There's Orizaba again, final view. And then one of the towns we went through on the way to the freeway, you know, people setting up their stores for the morning on Sunday and setting up food booths. Puebla has some stores that sell Talavera pottery, and we had seen a thing on PBS about it, and my mission was to get some, and this is an example of a piece that I bought in Puebla. And this little fellow, Lagata, I found at the airport and was sufficiently charmed by it that I had to buy it, even though, you know, being at an airport is priced high. Puebla also had nicely embroidered clothing. I'm wearing a shirt I bought there, but because, you know, size issues, I wasn't about to try to get my wife a dress or a blouse or anything without her there to try the thing on. Yeah, as I say, some fun shopping there. So, kind of wrapping up, this is a picture that, again, I picked off the internet showing that Popo and Ixta are indeed quite visible from Mexico City. So what's next? Well, gee, Mexico did whet my desire to climb some more big mountains, and I really did like the guide company, not having to fool with a lot of the logistics, having them keeping you safe and ensuring success and motivating you. Yeah, that was nice. So I'm actually committed to go climbing in Ecuador, and I was talking to Rick at dinner, and sounds like a similar thing. There's 15 days, 5 peaks, 2 warm-ups, and then these 3 big bad ones. Cayambe at 19,000 feet. The slogan is 0 degrees at 0 degrees. It's on the equator. Cotopaxi, beautiful volcano, and then the high point of Ecuador, Chimborazo, at over 20,000 feet. So yeah, should be fun. And with that, I will be happy to take questions.
All right.
Okay, Beth, what
do
we
you
got?
want to start with anybody in the room? We'll watch for
Let me
hands going
turn
up.
my, okay, there. My hearing aids are up a bit. Yeah, I've already heard that comment. And what's so person expressed surprise that a guide company would let us go up a 30-degree glacier with hiking poles instead of ice axe. And what makes it even more interesting, we did have some training with ice axes. We had them, and we even took them with us. But they, and for that matter, I deemed it safe enough that we didn't really feel we had to have them, if that makes any sense. If I'd felt unsafe with it or unsure about it, I would have popped the ice axe out and been using it. Yes, we did, and as I say, they did give us practice with it. They were clearly anticipating we might need them, but then they made the judgment call at the time that, okay, it's not necessary. And they were good about trying to keep 2 people per guide, so it weren't going to be a lot of people strung together. Other questions?
All right, so a couple questions online about altitude sickness. Did anyone in your group have trouble with the altitude?
So the altitude, yes, thanks for asking about that. So yes, one person in our group did have issues with the altitude. Everyone made it up La Malinche at 14.6, no trouble. But one guy seemed to have a ceiling of 14.6. When we hiked up to the high camp, everyone was fine. But then the next morning, I was talking to one of the guys who had been my roommate in some of the hotel rooms, and he said he was feeling a little bit of a headache. Unfortunately, the guides were checking all of us. He stayed behind. They weren't going to let him up. The one woman didn't have altitude issues per se, but she did have some lactose leg issues, and she turned around at the point where we were putting on crampons, and one of the guides went back with her. The same guy, when we were on Orizaba, we started up, and then the first break was at 14.6, 15,000. And since he had already had issues, I was talking to him, said, you know, how are you doing and everything. He said, well, I'm having a little bit of a headache. Unfortunately, the guide caught him almost immediately after I talked to him. They sent him down. You know, so we only had the one guy that had issues with it. The rest of us didn't. In my case, I did not feel the altitude. The biggest concession, as I said earlier, was I was just slow. Okay? Okay, so the question was, did bring Diamox or did people in the group have it? And the answer was yes and yes. It was part of our gear list was to have Diamox and a couple of other things for altitude issues. And we were also required to carry with us a broad spectrum antibiotic in case we got La Turista or Montezuma's revenge. Fortunately, none of us had issues with it because we also carried bottles of hand sanitizer and used that everywhere we went. So, yeah.
Yeah, along those same lines, we had a couple questions about the sources of the food and water. What was it safe? Did your guides check it? Yeah, start there.
So, food, most of it was especially on the climbs, it was mostly prepackaged. In a couple of cases, we did have some stuff that was cooked. And the rule was if it had been cooked, it was fine. If it was fruit and you peeled it, it was fine. Water, the company bought enough 5-liter bottles of water and to take with us that we filled up from that, and we did not need to filter it for the climbs. And then when we were in Mexico City or Puebla or whatever, we bought bottled water or beer or whatever. So it was not an issue. In Puebla, I had heard that mole was one of their signature dishes. I mentioned it to one of the guides, and he warned me off of that, saying that one of the previous trips, somebody had had the mole and was spectacularly ill afterwards. And so it's like, okay, never mind. So, yeah, it turned out not to be a significant issue.
Still on the food topic, were some meals included in your tour cost, or only the on-mountain ramen?
Some meals were included. Basically, breakfast every day was included, whether it was on the trail or not. There were some lunches and dinners were included sporadically, but yeah, I would say maybe a third of a little over a third of the meals, because as I say, breakfast was included every day, and then there were a few lunches and dinners.
Was your tour company based in the U.S. or Mexico?
U.S. Rainier's based up in Seattle area. Rainier did they have connections with local places in Mexico that handled the logistics, like the bus driving us around as a company they use all the time. And Alan, one of the local guide, is somebody that they use quite a bit. And Alan, even though he lives in Mexico, had been in the U.S. quite a bit, spoke English, quite well.
Can you speak to how safe you felt in Mexico?
Perfectly safe where we were. That question got asked of the guide, how safe, about the safety. And he said that really the real bad spots were the northern border with the U.S. and Veracruz were the places, but we weren't near those. Now, obviously, there would be places in Puebla or Mexico City that you wouldn't want to go to, but we weren't in those places. Where we were hiking in Mexico City and in Puebla, it was fine. Yeah, we felt perfectly safe. And I'll mention, in terms of the safety, in spite of, trekking poles, not ice axes, from the climbs and stuff, the only injury, if you want to call it that I had was one toe that got a blister on it, which is better than most of my climbing trips to Colorado.
All right. Anybody in the room or online? If you're still typing, I'll watch that chat. Okay. Well, if those are all the questions, I'll say thanks, Paul, one more time. So much for sharing your these epic climbs in Mexico with us tonight. Everyone, just remember to look out for the quick survey coming to your email. And check the Peak and the LAM websites for some great programming coming up this summer. Peak's Summer Family Evenings are every Wednesday in June and July, so that starts next week. And thanks everyone again for joining us, and have a good night.